The biggest obstacle to stepping out in faith is fear. Join me and my special guest for this important conversation on Family Vision. All right, Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries with a special guest, special summer edition of Family Vision. Welcome, Joe Simonds from Salt Strong.
What's up, Brother Rob? Good to see you, man.
Great to see you. I had the privilege of being on your podcast a couple weeks ago, and I did most of the talking, which I guess was kind of the point. But we have gotten to know each other over the past couple of months working on this new devotional, Let There Be Fish. And I first connected with you because of your online fishing club, Salt Strong. Mm-hmm. So today we're going to be talking about the intersection of our faith, our family, and then work and business and entrepreneurship and some of the challenges that go with all of that. But before we dive in, can you just please introduce yourself, share your story a bit, tell us about your family?
Yeah, the 30,000 foot view. Born and raised in Florida, fishing was a massive part of our family. Our grandfather had a condo in Daytona Beach, Florida. We went there every summer. I'm talking like 3 months, straight. That's just what we did. As we got older and sports came in and, we kind of had to pivot around a few times. But for the most part, my memories of growing up every summer were there and some field trips around that Daytona area. And when he passed away in 94, it was certainly a celebration of life. We had 12 grandkids, myself and my brother being two of them. And this is really what hit home and tied in what we're doing today. And we were all going around sharing our favorite memories of our grandfather who just passed away. And what was wild, out of these 12 grandkids, all adults at this point, not one of us thought of anything he bought us for Christmas or for our birthdays. There was no material things. It was all these little memories that he helped create, in particular around this condo, this little beach condo. And he was big into boating. And Luke and I had just started Salt Strong, ironically, at that time. We were in the financial services industry, and we started Salt Strong, honestly, Rob, with like zero business plan. Looking back, that was not smart. But we knew we wanted to teach people how to catch fish because it's something that was really important to us for the reasons I mentioned. But it was in that first year of Salt Strong that he passed away. And as soon as that kind of happened, it wasn't an immediate like aha, but it was shortly after. Luke and I just kept thinking about what happened, what occurred at that table with the 12 of us grandkids that have known this man our entire lives. And we're like, wow, he created or helped create all these memories that really matter. And today, now we have 40,000 members in our fishing club. And that's what gives us the goosebumps now with our 20-something plus employees. When we get those testimonials from moms, dad, grandparents, whoever it might be, saying, you guys helped me create this memory. And it's usually a picture accompanying it. And as you know, we have a private community. That's the stuff that gets us going. We're like, that is cool. I mean, that's something that these kids might be talking about when their parents or grandparents pass away. And so that's really what drives us today. Obviously, we've made a ton of mistakes. We've made some pivots. We've introduced this unchurched part of our business, where it was the first time we really went out there publicly with our faith, which was
that's your once a week. That's your Sunday morning podcast, where instead of talking about fishing, you're talking about faith and really challenging people to grow in their walk with God.
You got it. And that was, man, we could talk about that as much as you want to. But that was, looking back, that was one of the scariest moments. And I talked in your book about fear. Right. And I think so much of what stops us from becoming who God wants us to be is fear-based or fear-related. And that was so scary, because up to this point, we've been doing business for 4-ish years and things are going pretty smooth. We were like, do we really need this to like go out there and, basically in our eyes, put a bullseye on our back saying we're Christians and what's going to happen? What are people going to think? It was really, really a scary point. Looking back, obviously, I'm glad I did it. But
yeah, let's press into that. Okay, so you come out of the financial industry, you and your brother Luke. You love fishing, like you said. It's tied into really helping families and building memories. You start the online club. You start the tackle store. 4 years in, but you guys are believers. You have this relationship with God. What was the first thought that the Lord might want you to use your business, which was growing and becoming successful, to be a little bit more intentional when it came to making a spiritual impact? Like, what are the first thoughts that came to mind?
I always felt there was this, not ever like I heard from God, but it was almost like this nudging where I would just get this feeling like that he wanted us to use this for his glory and to really turn it into somewhat of a ministry. Obviously, there's a lot of, I mean, heck, you talked about it in your book. There's a lot that goes on with fishing and with disciples and with the Bible in general. And so I knew there was something there, but I was scared to do it. And so I joined this group called
Why were you scared?
What would people think of me? And man, this is kind of more of a personal one, but going deep down, not so much what do all these strangers think of me per se, because that was there, but it was almost like, man, what do all because I did some dumb stuff in college. What do all my college friends who were kind of following me along are they going to say this guy's a fraud? You should have seen we got pictures of what dumb stuff he did in college and keg stands. And just being completely honest, it was all those little fears like, man, what are people going to think? What are my friends going to think? Because I feel like that's what stops people from doing big things. It's not what does someone in the other side of the country going to think of me. It's mostly what are my friends and acquaintances and the people that I'm trying to impress or that I want to have influence on, or that's usually what it is. And I, looking back, that was kind of I had a couple people in mind that I was like, oh man, like, what are they going to even think of me when I do this? But here's kind of what happened. And this was my sign from God to do it. So I joined this group called C12, I believe you're familiar with, and it's essentially a Christian leadership group. And we meet once a month. And there was a guest there, meaning this guy's not even part of our group. Normally when you're a guest, you kind of sit back and you're not as vocal as you normally would in your own little group where you're comfortable with. And I was telling the story. We were all sharing what's on our mission statement. And I said, hey, we have God in there. And I said, unite friends and family. And I said, to honor God in all we do. And this guest, he stopped me and he goes, well, why wouldn't you put Jesus Christ on there instead of just God? And I'm looking like for my boys to like back me up, the other guys in the room who I've known forever. And I'm looking around, everyone's kind of staring at me. And I said, I don't know. And I sat there for a second and I was like, I guess I'm afraid. I'm just being honest. I haven't even thought about it. I thought God was good enough. And he's like, well, I would urge you to put Jesus on there. He's like, he goes, are you worried about what some random person on the internet thinks of you? And I was like, not really. And he's like, well, then just do it. So it took me about a week or so, but I did it. I told my brother Luke, who's my business partner, 100% on board with it. I didn't tell him when I was going to do it. So it was a Wednesday night. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go in there and do it. It's on WordPress where our site is. And I went in there, I hit edit, and I changed that one line in our mission statement, which is on our about page, to honor God and Jesus Christ in all that we do. Save, go to bed. This is no lie. The next morning, like 5:30, my brother wakes up early and he's blowing my phone up. And I'm like waking up. I was like, what do you want, dude? And he's like, the site is shut down. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, it's like literally shut down. I can't even get in as admin. It's like, it looks like it's wiped out. And I was like, dude, that's impossible. And I still hadn't, I'm still waking up. I still hadn't put it together. Sure. And it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, Luke, last night I added Jesus Christ to our site. Do you think this has anything to do with it? And he's like, I don't know, man, that's eerie. He's like, that's just crazy. And so we waited till about 7 for our head of IT to kind of be up. And his name's Nick. We called Nick. And he's like, dude, this is crazy. He's like, I can't even get in. So we had to go. Thankfully, he backs it all up and was able to get in. And it turns out that because it's on WordPress, I don't know if you know much about just WordPress and how all these sites work, but WordPress has all these plugins, and the plugins are really things to enhance your site. They're different features. And these plugins are made from developers all over the world. And it turns out that we had, 28 different plugins or whatever the number was. It was a bunch. And one of them in particular was created from a country. I won't name it, but it was a country in the Middle East. And apparently, they have access to see what's on your site. And they had some kind of scraper in there. And they do this on a lot of sites that are essentially targeting anyone talking about Jesus, Christianity. And the mere act of me putting that in there flagged them, and they basically reverse hacked into our site and shut the thing down. And so that was one of those moments where we had to make a decision. Like, we obviously got the site back up. It took a day.
Yeah. Was that put your tail between your legs, or was that double down? We must be on the right track.
You got it. And obviously, after a lot of thought, we're like, all right, let's draw a line in the sand. Like, we're going to be on this side and we ain't turning back. Someone does not want us to have this on there. Some group or whatever it is, some evil force does not want this on there. We're feeling called to do it. This is kind of where we go all in. So that was step number one. This is before Unchurched. That was just the first step of doing it. And then it honestly kind of it felt good. And I felt like we were doing the right thing. I call it always just the magical moments that start happening. Just the right people were almost like falling into our path. It looked, every time we did the right thing and put God first, it was like the magic stuff just started happening. It was obviously just God's favor on us. And it was just wild how many things kept falling into place. And every time we just had faith and we had a little bit of patience. It's one of the things I struggle with. Like probably a lot of us, we want it done quick, but every time we just said, all right, we're going to trust God, things started happening. And so I felt that there needed to be more. It can't just be, let's slap Jesus Christ on our website and be done with it. And then I threw out the idea of the Unchurched to that same group. The guest was not there that time, but I threw the idea out there. And they're all like, dude, that's awesome. Like, man, like the world needs this, like, especially with your audience of fishermen. I mean, the irony there, right, of being fishers of men. I mean, and I knew from talking to so many of them, they were, for the most part, conservative Christians that had either been burned by the church, went to church growing up, but just don't go anymore, whatever reason. And I was like, this is it. And so we called it Salt Shrunk Unchurched. And even then, it wasn't like a week, it took a few months to finally do the first one. I recorded the first one with he's actually a pastor and he's one of our insider members. And he was the very first guest. And the title was, Is God Real? And so I was like, dude, we're going out with a bang here. And we sent it out to our entire list at the time. I remember just so nervous. As much as I want to say I was calm and I was full of peace, I was nervous to hit that one button and it shoots it out to every one of your members. And it's like, all right, let's wait and see what happens here. And I'd be lying if I said we didn't get some hate mail. We also had, I want to say at the time we had 18,000 members. It might have been 20. It was somewhere around there. And three out of, let's just say 20,000 people left and said, I want my money back. I don't want to be a part of this. And so after all that worry, it was 3 people. But the irony was we had people come out of the woodworks who weren't members, but saw it and said, I remember this one guy, he's like, I live in Tennessee. I saltwater fish, once a year, if I'm lucky. I just want to support you guys for doing the right thing and doing it. So, whoa. Wow. It's like we started attracting all these awesome people, the kind of people we want to work with in general anyways, not I'm going to say jerks that, you should have seen, and I'm sure you can only guess what some of the messages we got from these people. It was just like, whoa. You would have thought I killed every one of their pets and their family. It was just like, whoa, all I did was put one podcast. You could have just skipped it. It's just amazing the hatred that's out there. But so anyways, all of that for really not much to be afraid of. And ever since then, I feel like God has just opened up the floodgates of just favor in general. And ultimately for us, it's about making an impact and creating memories. And we've been able to, we were at 20,000 then. That wasn't that long ago. It was just a couple of years ago. It was right before COVID. And now we're at 40,000 members. And those are all people that we're able to have an influence on and have hopefully a massive impact with their families. Because that's what it's all about. As I said earlier, it's all about helping families just unite together, create memories that matter. Even with my kids, when I'm out in the boat, it's like something magic happens where things they wouldn't have shared with me at the dinner table, or they wouldn't have shared with me in the car. It's so weird that even if you're not on a boat, you could be in a kayak or even on the shore, just when you're out in the water and out with, I'm going to say with God, it's amazing what conversations open up with my kids in particular. And so I love it. The more we can do of that, the better. And so that's the unchurched story in a nutshell.
I love it. And I think it's so encouraging to hear your story where you take this step of faith and the Lord provides a foundation for the step. In other words, you don't fall. Yeah. And then a few months later, the Lord's like, all right, another step. And you're like, I don't know, but you take another step and he provides the firm foundation. And I think, throughout the Bible, God is always saying, remember, just remember my faithfulness for what you're facing right now so that you're not afraid. I know you were afraid in the past, but I've proven myself to you. And he wants us to go back and remember, all right, Lord, you proved yourself then, I'm sticking with you.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, we're going to push pause and we're going to come back next week and we're going to keep this conversation going. And I'm going to specifically want to talk to you. You just talked about connecting with your kids and your family. And I want to talk about how sometimes the pressures of work and entrepreneurship can cause some struggles for us at home. I think you and I both have a testimony about that. So we're going to come back and continue next week. Folks, you can always connect with me, connect with Amy through our email podcast@visionaryfam.com. We would love to hear from you. And I want you to connect with Joe and Luke Simonds. Check out their website, saltstrong.com. Check out their podcast, Salt Strong. And then every Sunday, that unchurched episode, which is going to, I really love Joe's approach. He just opens up his heart, opens up some scriptures, the good, the bad, and the ugly, sometimes bad and ugly from things that Joe is navigating in his own life. But I listen to it. I find it as a great encouragement, and I would challenge you to do it as well. So stay in touch, podcast@visionaryfam.com, and we look forward to our next episode with you on Family Vision.